Hi folks, and welcome to American Outdoors. On this episode I'm going to do a short video on how to replace the steering coupler, also known as a rag joint, on a square body GM truck. Now these rag joints are going to be the same basically going back from about 1963 up through 1988 was the end of the square bodies, but also the OBS up until about 2000. There are some differences, but the basic methods for replacing them is still the same. So the truck that I'm working on here is a 1980 GMC K15, and if you can't tell, that's the original rag joint, and the steering on this has gone from loose to really sloppy to the point where when you're on the road you can control the direction like west or north, but that's about it. So it's time to go. Now, rag joints are pretty well overlooked. I mean, a lot of people, they will replace front end parts, they'll make sure everything's tight, and they don't realize that rag joint on there can just make everything still like you've got a bad front end. And these old square bodies have been around long enough now that, well, I mean, the gearboxes have started to fail. They've loosened up, and now is a good time when you're going to pull this rag joint off to check the gearbox too, to make sure that it's good and that it doesn't need to be replaced as well. Now, we've got a video showing how to replace a steering gearbox. I think we did it on an 85 Chevy Silverado K10. Anyway, I'll post a link to that video. These rag joints are a very simple design. It's basically like an Oreo cookie. There's two circular pieces of metal on the outside with a black piece of rubber sandwiched in the middle. And over time, they can dry out and crack, or due to hydraulic fluids, oil, gas, whatever, they start to soften, they'll fall apart, they'll deform. But the rag joint couples to the gearbox via splines. So be sure and check the splines on the gearbox. Look for chipped splines or areas where the splines are worn down. Now they can also be worn down on the inside of the rag joint. So the rubber may look good on the outside, but the inside of the joint is wore out. And this is a common cause of loose steering on Chevy and GMC square body trucks. So the process is pretty straightforward. I spray the fittings down with penetrating oil, and it's best to let them soak overnight. Take a 7/16 socket with an extension and remove the vertical bolt that holds the joint to the steering gearbox shaft. Next, I'll remove the two horizontal bolts and nuts, and you'll need a box end, open end, 1/2-inch wrench for one side, and then a 1/2-inch socket with a short extension on the other side. And once you take those out, that'll allow you to remove the steering shaft so you can have clear access to remove the rag joint. So here I'm using a short pry bar, but you can also use a large flat head screwdriver. Just something to get in between the rag joint and the steering gearbox, break it free, and slowly work it up the shaft until you can slide it off the end. Oh yeah, and if you're working over gravel or dirt, be sure and put some cardboard beneath your truck. With the joint removed, I'll just take a wire brush and I'll clean any gunk, grease, rust, or debris off the shaft. It's okay to rotate the rag joint so you can line those bolts up into the holes. It only goes on one way, so you can't screw it up. The manufacturer recommends that you use a 5/8 deep well socket to drive the center of the rag joint onto the shaft. I've always just used a dead blow mallet, tapping side to side on it. Works just as well. I've always preferred to put the horizontal bolts back into the rag joint after I've got the steering column shaft lined up. And then finally, install the 7/16 bolt into the collar clamp and then snug it down, making sure that it's sufficiently on the shaft. We'll leave some more helps and how-tos in the description below and in links at the end of this video. You can also check us out on X, Facebook, and Pinterest. Leave your comments below, and you can support the channel by hitting that like and subscribe. From all of us here at American Outdoors, thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you again soon.